So today I want to talk about, do I regret moving to Colombia from the US? Sometimes I talk a lot of bad about the US, but the US actually has a lot of things that I miss. So I'm from California, right? There's a lot of things that I dislike about it, and I'll get to that later, but there's a lot of things that I miss about the country. For example, how they celebrate diversity. The US is really the land of opportunity, and I think that's very underrated. And there's a reason why everybody wants to go to the States, because the economic opportunity there is unlike any other. You know, you can go there for a year, 2 years, make a business, and you can make a living for yourself. My parents are immigrants. My dad moved to the States when he was 15, and he was able to make something for himself from zero. So I think that's really amazing that you hear stories like that all the time. What the US stands for, the values, the culture, the Constitution, all those things are really beautiful. I think on paper, the US is founded on really amazing values. If you look at the amount of freedoms that we're given, how it's focused on the individual, you being able to do what you want without government interference, I think that's really amazing. I think a lot of that has been warped nowadays, but you know, I'll talk about that later. I do appreciate the organization and the infrastructure of the US. In a lot of the big cities, it's not as safe as it once was. But if you were to compare like a big city in the States versus like Bogota or Medellín, I feel like being in a big city in the States is way better. The police have their problems, but I think police presence is definitely a lot more respected in the States than it is here in Latin America. The States has really good infrastructure for the roads. The problem with the States is that you almost have to drive everywhere, and the public transportation isn't as good. But it's a lot more organized in the sense where the roads are always paved. If there's construction being done on the road, it gets done in a timely fashion. There's like a quality of work that's required for almost anything in the States, right? If you're a lawyer, if you're doing construction, there's a lot of things to pass, permits that you need to get done, and it makes sure that everything is done in like good quality. I feel like a big problem about Latin America, here in Colombia specifically, is that the people like to take shortcuts. A lot of times the buildings will be built, the roads will be built, and it'll be done quickly, but they'll break pretty easily. I also miss Amazon. Amazon is extremely underrated. Any product that you want, Amazon can ship to you in 1 or 2 days. That's something that we take extremely for granted because that doesn't really exist here in Colombia. Import fees are super big here in Colombia, so if you want to buy technology here, it's almost double the price sometimes. The US, even though it's a very materialistic culture, things there, if you're earning in dollars, are relatively cheap. I do appreciate being an American because the American passport is a lot stronger than you think. You can go into most countries without a visa and they won't give you a problem. And this is something I'm appreciating now because I'm applying for my wife. There's so many countries that won't allow her, or she needs like specific visas because she's a Colombian, you know? I appreciate that the dollar is very strong, and even though we're experiencing a lot of inflation in the States, universally, like all around the world, the dollar has still retained its power. And something you really got to respect about the States is that it's a pioneer in a lot of ways for the whole entire world. American music is so influential. American culture is extremely influential. And I think it's because the values that America was founded on has led to so many advancements in social rights, in technology, in business, in capitalism. Like all these things on paper are really good values. If you guys are looking to move to Colombia, I am offering consultations. Email me here or shoot me a DM on Instagram so we can set something up. I'm also looking into making a relocation service for expats who are looking to come here. That's going to be coming in the next couple of months, but in the meantime, please consider donating to the channel. Ad revenue doesn't pay a lot, so I mainly get by with consultations and donations. So if you guys find it in your heart to donate, thank you so much and may God bless you. So even with all the problems that I have with the US, at the end of the day, I am very proud to be an American. I think the values are amazing and everything that America stands for is great. Fortunately, when you put too much focus on the individual, I feel like it brings out the best and the worst in people. And social media has just multiplied this times 1,000. I hate the materialistic culture of the States. I hate how everything's about status and about how many followers you have. A lot of you guys have pointed out that my views are this way because I was raised in California and it's different in other states, and that's probably true. When you focus on the individual, you get this mess of a culture that we have now where we have to be accepting to everything. We have to cater to everybody. I don't think that's a good system for like a functioning society to work. I hate how in the States we worship the wrong things. Every girl wants to be Kim Kardashian right now, which is crazy because she's literally a glorified whore. She became famous because of her sex tape, and that whole entire family, they're just a bunch of glorified whores. And everybody wants to be like them. Kim Kardashian has affected a whole entire generation of how these women want to look. They all want to get plastic surgery on their lips. They want to get their butt done. They want to get their boobs done. Men, on the other side, worship rappers. We worship athletes. And even though I would say like people like Kobe or LeBron James are probably some really good examples, for the most part, all of these musicians are terrible examples of human beings. And these are the things that we're all focusing on. And I just look at concerts and I look at the youth. Like it's happening in Colombia too, but in the States, I feel like it's just on steroids. America's biggest strength is also its biggest weakness. We push so much for diversity that America itself doesn't really have an identity. The US doesn't have an established culture. Everybody comes into the States and makes their own culture. And that sounds cool on paper, but when you have Middle Eastern people, Asian people, Hispanic people, white people, black people, and they all value their own culture above everything else, inevitably we're going to face conflict, because what's rude in Latin culture is not rude in Asian culture, but is super offensive in Middle Eastern culture, maybe really okay in black culture, but in white culture is totally like crazy, right? I don't think you're ever gonna really get rid of racism. I'm an Asian person in Asia. We're like some of the most racist people ever. We're always attracted to people that are like our own, and we're always going to demonize other groups for whatever reason, right? People literally get into fights because of a sports team. So imagine that on steroids, with not just like a sports team, but like with our home culture. I think that's just a part of human nature. That's why the culture in the States right now, everybody's afraid to joke about something, everybody's afraid to like offend somebody, but I don't think that's any way to live, because everything's always offensive to somebody. If I remain neutral, people are gonna hate me anyway, so I might as well just like share my opinion openly. I'd rather be like authentic and honest to myself. And I feel like in the States, a lot of places, if you're not liberal, because that seems to be like the mainstream media is pushing, like if you don't lean left and you say you're a conservative, people call you all sorts of names. People try to cancel you because you're like anti-LGBT. It's a lot easier to come out as gay than it is to come out as conservative or Christian. And maybe that's just LA, right? Maybe in other parts it's different, but that's how I felt when I was there. I think it's crazy that the US is one of the richest countries in the world, but we suffer from the most mental health problems. And everything that we have in the States are problems of abundance. We always have to be buying more things. Everybody's obese. It's like 60% overweight and like 35% morbidly obese, which is completely unacceptable. The food is so processed. If you ever go to the States, right, and you eat food there, it tastes delicious, but it doesn't hit quite the same. And then when you go to a country like Colombia, where everything's like super natural, you can see all the fruits and vegetables and everything, it just hits you differently. I think the nutrients that we have in the food in the States is extremely lacking, which leads us to eat more, which is why we have such an obesity problem. You need to have a car to get anywhere. Maybe in New York, that's not the case, but in most parts of the country, because of like the zoning laws and everything, you need a car to survive. It leads to a very sedimentary lifestyle because you don't really walk everywhere. You're always taking your car. Gas is super expensive. Whereas here in Colombia, especially here in Manizales, is a city of hills. So everybody's always walking everywhere. And even my mother-in-law, she's like in her 60s, I think 70s, something like that. She can even climb these hills, no problem. And she's like not huffing and puffing, and she's still relatively pretty fit. I just feel like the US culture has lost a lot of like its traditional values. Let me know if you guys feel that too. And the whole entire like feminist, modern woman lifestyle and movement has really destroyed dating in the States. Men are so demasculated in the States. Everywhere it's always women power, women empowerment, all these things. Men are the bad guys. If you look at media, men are usually incompetent, dumb. Women are usually the smart ones, the ones that are there to save the day. This modern woman mentality has infected the rest of the world. It happens here in Colombia as well. Girls that are my age and younger, they're all about the bag. They don't want kids, they just want dogs. Sexual promiscuity all over the place. You can't really avoid that anymore, and I think the US was the biggest reason, the biggest root for this problem. Everything that the US does, the rest of the world seems to follow. Diversity used to be like a really good thing about the States, but now it's being used as a weapon. Like everybody's a victim nowadays. The more of a victim you are, the higher status that you have. I don't care your race, I don't care your sexual preference, whatever, right? Why does that have to be like the focal point of your identity? Why can't it be that you're a great lawyer, but in America it has to be like, I'm black, I'm gay, and then I'm a lawyer, right? I don't care. We're trying to cater to this like small minority of complainers or people that are like, have this victim mentality, which is a terrible way to run a country. And it's because a lot of people are just afraid to stand up and say like, genders are not a concept. No, a trans woman cannot compete in a woman's competition. I don't know, bro. There's just a lot of wacky BS going on in the US right now. But I think a lot of people are now just taught to be slaves, and you have to accept everything, You cannot stand up for anything. And when someone like Andrew Tate comes along and says a lot of things that men are thinking, they go and they silence him and they ban him from all these like social media platforms, right? I don't agree with everything that he says, but I don't think that's the right way either. There's a lot of good things and bad things about the States. Colombia has a lot of its problems too. The big thing that keeps people here are the people and the culture. The food is all right, it's good, it's passable, but obviously as an Asian person, I think Asian food is way superior. But Colombia has problems with its infrastructure, with organization of people, with a lot of corruption. You can't really trust people here the same way that you can do business in the States. Like there's a lot of cheaters here, there's a lot of people that are trying to scam you. It's not as safe here as it is in the States. At the end of the day, I do feel like with everything from the US and living here for almost 3 years now, I'm very happy living in Colombia. I would much rather live in a country where the people and the culture are more in tune with I value. Whereas going to the States where everything's organized, people are a little more wealthy, but the culture is a mess and the youth is a mess. For my kids and for my family, I think Colombia is definitely the better place to raise people. And plus just being surrounded by like all this nature. I feel like the way that the cities are built in Colombia, where you can have the pharmacy at the end of the street and you can have like a produce man, the supermarkets down the street, is a way nicer way to live life rather than like in the US where you have to drive everywhere for everything. I do not regret moving to Colombia. I don't think I'll ever move back to the States. I would love to maybe live in other places, maybe in Europe for a little bit. If you guys moved somewhere else, how did it compare to the States? Do you guys feel that the US is still a really good place to live, or is it better to move out of the country and find luck elsewhere? Like the videos, consider donating to the channel. Thank you all so much. I'll catch you later. Bye.